Hi, everyone. Welcome to tonight's talk and tour. I am Krista Harmon. I am one of the career readiness consultants at the Kent Intermediate School District. And I'm so thrilled to have Mary Freebed Rehabilitation Hospital with us tonight. They've been a great supporter of our career readiness programming. And our goal is to really help young people get information about careers in rehabilitation so they can make some good choices when they graduate. So I have 6 panelists tonight, and I'm going to actually have each of them introduce themselves with their name, their occupation, and how long they've been part of Mary Freebed. So there are their names. And so just to give you a kind of a snapshot, we have a physical therapist, orthotics prosthetic resident, a patient service coordinator, a program manager, a quality improvement specialist, and a speech language pathologist. So I'm going to stop sharing, and then we're going to have some great conversation. So welcome, everyone. I want to give you a chance to introduce yourself. So Grace, we're going to start with you. Go ahead and your name, your occupation, how long you've been with the with Mary Freebed.
So my name is Grace Smith. I am an outpatient speech language pathologist. I work for Mary Freebed, but I actually work at Metro Health Hospital.
So that's great to know. Already young people are learning something, that you can be employed by one person and subcontracted out. I love it. How about you, Alyssa? Welcome.
Hi, yes, my name is Alyssa Tonishel, and I am a quality improvement specialist, and I actually have only been at Mary Freebed for 2 months. So I'm fairly new to the organization, but I'm very excited, and I really have loved it so far.
We're so glad you're here tonight. Thanks, Alyssa. Welcome, Mackenzie.
Yeah.
All right, as she said, yes, my name is Mackenzie. I'm a patient service coordinator in neuropsychology and the psychology department, and I've been here about 3 years here at Mary Freebed.
Welcome. We're so glad you're here. Hi, Andrew.
Hi, I'm Andrew. I've only been at Mary Freebed for about 6 months, but I did work there before as well, in different job title now. So yeah, as a prosthetic resident right now.
Good. And some young people aren't even sure what that is, so we're excited to dig into that a little bit. Hi, Kate. Welcome.
Hello, I'm Kate Rustum. I'm a physical therapist here at Mary Freebed, and I work in the outpatient pediatrics department. So I get to play with kids all day, and I have been here for about 8 years.
Great. And so young people, you're already learning a term. We have outpatient and inpatient. And so we're going to describe that a little bit for you as well. And then Ryan, last but not least.
Yes, Ryan Miller. I'm our program manager of our outpatient rehab facility in Kalamazoo. So I'm coming to probably most of you. I'm about an hour south of where most of you are at. And again, I'm our program manager for our outpatient team.
Awesome.
And I've been with Mary Freebed for 3 years.
So a lot of relative newbies there. I know the organization's very strong and growing, so good for you guys. I hear it's quite the place to work, and we'll show a video at the end, young people, so you can see what it looks like behind the scenes. So know that that'll be part of our hour together. So Grace, starting with you, take us back to high school. You know, did you think you'd grow up to be a speech pathologist? Tell us about that early thinking and how you landed where you are.
So I didn't really know what a speech language pathologist was when I was in high school. So definitely not thinking that route initially. I was always really interested in English and language. And so it was kind of a natural step when I went into college. So I discovered it in college, really.
What were you thinking when you first went off to college, just originally?
I actually wanted to be a doctor initially. So I was pre-med. And then kind of changed my path a little bit to stay in the medical field, but be in rehab instead.
Great. And so we'll dig into some of those influences that helped you kind of shift or those reasons why you shifted. Because I think a lot of young people might have an idea, but again, things impact us, right? Alyssa, right. What were you thinking back in high school? How did you end up here?
In high school, I really had no idea. I was just following, in my courses, I really liked science. I liked English, I liked math, and so I, at the time, thought I was going to be a teacher. And yeah, I really didn't even know healthcare extended more than just doctors and nurses. So I had no idea this role existed.
Good, and we'll look forward to learning more about what a quality improvement specialist is, because I know young people that might be a good fit for some of them. Mackenzie, welcome. What were you thinking about in high school?
So going back to high school, I mean, I was raised by a nurse, doctors in the family. I knew medical field. I really enjoyed helping others. And so going into college, you know, I kind of started more of that, maybe physical therapy, maybe athletic training. You know, a lot of those paths kind of parallel each other. And then from there, I kind of jumped a little bit out of the area, but still remain in the medical field today.
So what did your degree end up in then, or did you finish college?
Oh yeah, definitely. So I actually decided I wanted to pursue the athletic training program at Grand Valley, and then missed my test by 2 points and was kind of stuck. What courses, what can I continue on with school rather than a roadblock with nothing else to do? And so I just pursued an exercise science degree, which is actually a great base going on to a lot of medical professions.
Great. And I love that young people are hearing, you know, that there is plan Bs out there and that you can still be very happy where you land. And again, I look forward to digging into your story a little bit. Andrew, so you're a resident, so you're kind of still in the training. So tell us what you were thinking back in high school. A lot of young people don't know what orthotics and prosthetics is. What were you thinking?
Yeah, so right out of high school, if you'd have told me I ended up with a graduate degree, I'd have probably laughed at you. I went to a 2-year college first and was thinking IT, and kind of realized I was a little too social for that, and I wanted to work and help people. So I ended up, I went to Michigan State and got a bachelor's in exercise science as well, and then onto a master's.
Great. And so the next question, you guys, for all of you, I'll ask what some of those influences that helped you change your mind or shape those decisions. Kate, you're in physical therapist. Is that what you were thinking back in high school?
Yeah, so I was thinking when I was in high school, I was thinking something that was either in the medical field or potentially teaching, because I knew I liked working with kids. And then I actually had a little bit of a defining moment for me. My mom had a pretty serious illness known as a senior called Guillain-Barré syndrome, where she went through pretty serious hospitalization and a lot of rehab, and that kind of introduced me to the therapy world, and that's kind of what directed me down the path of pursuing physical therapy as a career.
Yeah, I've heard that. And for some young people that are watching, sometimes those personal experiences impact our decisions when we are exposed in a way, even with a loved one that's ill. So thank you for sharing that, Kate. Ryan, what were you thinking back in high school?
I was really hoping to play center field for the New York Yankees was my original goal in high school. However, as a backup plan, I thought I wanted to be a physical therapist. My mom's a physical therapist assistant. So that was kind of my plan. Back in when I was in high school, a physical therapy degree was just a 4-year bachelor's degree. So I came out, visited Grand Valley, went out to University of Michigan. But I thought I probably should find out a little bit more what a physical therapist did before applying to school. So did some observation with my mom. And that's where I would really encourage, students to take advantage of being able to do observation while they're in high school to, try to start narrowing in. So when I did that, I discovered I definitely did not want to be a physical therapist. Saw my mom having to do some wound care. Did not want to have to go through some of the things that would be involved with that. So I quickly pivoted and I ended up I went to Central Michigan for business. And that's what my degree is. I have a master's degree in marketing, communication, and advertising. Came full circle, and for the past 12 years, I've been managing the operations of physical therapy offices. So funny how things work out.
Yes, and I think that's what's important for these discussions tonight is that we can help young people understand how different interests can intersect. We can have a job that's not clinical per se, but still be in the health field. So I appreciate already what hopefully young people are learning. So back to you, Grace. You weren't really sure what a speech language pathologist was in high school. What kind of influences then did you experience, or did people, how did you find out? And how did you make that decision then to pursue it? And if you could just share what kind of degree you needed to finish that out too.
So I did my undergraduate work at the University of Michigan. And my major at the time was linguistics. So a lot of language, a lot of English, and Spanish was my minor. And so at the time when I was going pre-med, there was a class that you could take in the linguistics department where you got credit for observing speech therapists. And so again, echoing what Ryan said, that observation was really key for me, and being able to see kind of the breadth of what a speech therapist can do. So I already wanted to be in the medical field, but then seeing that actually speech therapists can work in the medical field was really eye-opening. So my undergraduate degree is in linguistics. And then I needed to take some extra classes to go apply for my master's degree. So I did a little bit of post-bachelor work at Wayne State University in Detroit. And then I got my master's degree at University of Pittsburgh. So I went out of state after that. So you do need a master's degree to be a speech therapist.
And it sounds like there were some prerequisites you had to, like you say, get under your belt before you applied for your master's degree. So again, for young people, this is the kind of stuff I want you to start to pick up on, so that as you start to figure out what major you want for your undergrad, that you know, even just to talk to those master level programs and find out what those prereqs are so you can start to build them in. Mm-hmm. And again, do you have to have a certain type of undergrad to be a speech pathologist, or can it be anything, Grace? Just so young people know there's maybe a little flexibility there.
Yeah, so your undergraduate degree can be in anything, but there are certain classes that you have to apply for your master's. So I think you have to have a bio class, a chemistry class, a statistics class. So I had to kind of check those boxes to make sure I could apply.
So before I keep going, because I always do this, I get so into your personal stories, but some young people may not know what a speech pathologist is, just like you didn't in high school. So why don't we kind of step back, and I'll have each of you share what your job is and what you actually do. So let's start with you, Grace, to kind of finish that out, and then we'll go to the next person to share what it is, and I'll round back to the education piece. So
okay,
ahead, Grace.
Sounds good. So like I said, I work in an outpatient setting. So patients come from home to see me in my office for therapy. We have both outpatient and inpatient therapy over at Metro. So sometimes when I'm slow, I'll flip to inpatient. So I see patients that are admitted to the hospital as well, which is nice. I really like that flexibility to kind of have that change of pace sometimes. Stops you from getting complacent, which is nice. As a speech therapist, I think a lot of people just think of us as working on speech, obviously, because that's part of our name. But a lot of what I do is actually working on thinking. So changes in memory and focus that can come from a stroke, can come from a concussion, can come from Parkinson's disease or dementia. So my job is working with people who have had changes in their brain. So mostly neuro patients that I'm seeing. So.
And I've heard it described as kind of anything from the neck above. So swallowing, like you say, speaking, all those different things.
Yeah, that's a really good description. Yeah.
And for those young people on the Zoom that really like the idea of working with children, this is certainly something that you work with babies all the way up to older folks, right?
Yeah, so I actually only work with adults at Metro. I do work with some high schoolers, like concussion patients sometimes, but the youngest patient I'll see is probably 12 or 13 years old. But speech therapists certainly work with pediatric patients as well. That's just not the path that my career took.
Sure, absolutely. And we'll talk about education, and if some of these you have to have, it's just the same degree. It's just you end up specializing in it. So keep that in mind, young people, if you like children, that speech pathologist is one. So Alyssa, welcome again. Quality improvement specialist. I know that's a term that a lot of young people may not know. So tell us what your job is like. What do you do?
Yeah, so I work on improving, imagine that. So we are always trying to drive quality throughout the hospital system. Usually I'm working on a project, many projects all at once. I'm still fairly new, so I'm just kind of getting my feet wet. But we also make sure that our accreditations stay in place. So any healthcare organization is going to be accredited through the Joint Commission or Mary Free Bed. We work with CARF because we're a rehab hospital. And so I make sure that that all stays in place and that all the quality metrics and all the policies are, right where they need to be so that we do get accredited by these large organizations. We're also measuring different outcomes. And basically that's just how are we doing? How are we performing as a hospital? Are patients actually getting better? If they're in a rehab hospital, are they able to go from wheelchair to walking? And so we measure those types of outcomes. And then we also work on improvements that we need in the hospital. So we currently are working with our patient falls. So sometimes a patient will fall in the hospital and we look at why did this occur? How can we improve it? And we work with those leaders, nurse leaders, and figure out, you know, what are the right steps to take to make sure that this happens at a very minimal level.
That's a great explanation. Thank you so much. And for you young people that are on the call, how many of you, put in the chat if you're already one of those people that naturally looks how to make things better, because this might be an area for you. So if that happens to be you, go ahead and put that in the chat. Mackenzie, patient service coordinator, specifically in the neuropsych. So tell us a little bit about what that means.
So similar to Alyssa, it's a lot of problem solving. And as a patient service coordinator, or here at Mary Free Bed, we call them PSCs, you do a lot of ins and outs of the department. You make sure the department flows well, start to finish. When you get a patient, how they can, recover, grow, and get them to where they need to be. So, you're the first point of contact, whether it's face-to-face, over the phone, you make that first, just like I said, that first point of contact, that first impression of Mary Free Bed. So it, in that sense, it's a big role. And then as far as all the other little details, we do verify insurances. We call to get authorizations for those services with the insurances. We call to schedule patients. So we do take care of and mandate quite a few physician schedules, multiple different types of appointments. We work with other departments. So a lot of times psychology or neuropsychology is a service going in conjunction to physical therapy or occupational therapy. So you have to work with other departments to schedule your therapies together, and making sure all that's pretty smooth for the patient. And as far as recovering, Mary Free Bed is very big on, start to finish. We offer the service inpatient as well as outpatient. So you can kind of follow them from start to finish. Some of the patients will come back year after year for similar testing. So it never really ends, but really it's a good way to see a map of the whole hospital, or the hospital as a whole, you could say, just from one little department, but there's so many little departments similar to mine, and just watching that flow.
It sounds like you're really some of the glue that keeps it all together. My daughter
Yeah, they definitely call us most of the departments. Another, important factor is that all of the outpatient departments have PSCs. We all have different credentialing. We all come from all walks of life. And it's really neat to see how versatile this role can be. So again, it is the glue to a lot of our services. Yeah.
And you had mentioned that your degree was in exercise science, but athletic training. Is that what you had said earlier?
So I originally started at Grand Valley State University for athletic training, and then kind of detoured more towards physical therapy. And then at the end, just exercise science was a good fit for me. Very similar classes for all three of those majors there, or two majors. I was able to do a year of research, which I highly recommend. It's just an experience, something you can do in college, travel, present, things like that, and just build your background, build your resume, take advantage of those opportunities. And then from there, with an exercise science degree, it is an awesome base for moving on to PT, OT, speech pathology. It does encompass a lot of your maths and sciences and all of those that, usually you start with the medical field with those interests anyways. And so it just opens the doors to quite a few different opportunities.
I think that's golden information. So young people, if you haven't written that down, if you don't have a pen or paper, make a note of exercise science. Maybe that is something that some of you didn't know about. And again, it's a very versatile undergrad degree, which will set you up for a lot of success when you have to go on to get your master's for some of these roles. Thank you, Mackenzie. My daughter just had an interview today in DC for that role, so I'm really excited. I hope she gets it. She's excited. Andrew, so tell us about your orthotics, prosthetics. Again, young people may not be familiar with those terms.
Yeah, so what we do is we do head to toe bracing. So everything from cranial helmets for babies, back braces for people who fracture their back, and ankle foot orthoses. I'm sure you guys have seen people with them on before. But what I specifically do is prosthetics. So artificial limbs, upper, lower. and I meet with a patient. We take a casting. A lot of it is developing a relationship and determining where they fall and how they can succeed the best, what you can make for them to succeed best. So we'll take a cast and then we'll fit them with something. I'll modify it myself. It's a lot of getting your hands dirty, kind of like a workshop, and it's a pretty cool field.
I think that's really important for young people to understand that there are some careers in health that you actually get to put kind of engineering and some of your skilled trades together to create these prosthetics for patients to help them, like you say, artificial limb, these cranial helmets. A lot of people don't understand that those skill sets cross over very uniquely to this position. So being a resident, what does that mean?
Yeah, so I just graduated with my master's degree from Eastern Michigan, which is the only place that does orthotics and prosthetics in the state. And so as a resident, it's just kind of like a year learning period where I'm on staff, but I always have to have other people sign off on my work. So I still see patients, and a lot of times now I see them on my own, but I don't, I can't sign off on my own stuff, so.
Yeah, because you're technically still a student, so.
Yeah. I'm graduating.
You're graduating. That's right, because that's a level after your master's, like you said. So,
and it's a year for orthotics and a year for prosthetics. So I did prosthetics first. So I'll do another year of residency next, and then.
So just like doctors, you guys, as doctors have to be residents, the same with the orthotic prosthetic field. And again, you get paid during those residencies?
Yeah, we do.
Okay, that's great. Kate, a physical therapist. Young people may like a little more detail on that. What does that mean?
So physical therapy is a pretty wide career path because you can do a lot of things within physical therapy. I'm a pediatric physical therapist, so my job is to help pediatric patients anywhere from infants to teenagers in improving their mobility. So that could be something like a baby who's got a tight neck muscle and learning how to hold their head up and learning how to roll over and learning how to push up on their arms and learning how to crawl and all those little baby skills, to working with a teenager who has had an injury and relearning how to walk, how to balance when they're standing, how to get back to some of those activities that they like to do, like running and jumping. So there's a lot that you can do within physical therapy, but my focus with pediatrics is really on improving mobility and help kids be kids.
That's a great way to put it. I'm sure that is inspiring to some young people already. Just because we don't have someone on the panel tonight, could you just give a quick description of what occupational therapy is versus your physical therapy?
Yeah, so whereas physical therapy focuses mainly on mobility and helping patients do things like walk and stand up from a chair, get up and down stairs, do things to move within their environment, occupational therapy is primarily focused on what we call activities of daily living. So that's the things that you have to do every day, like brush your hair, brush your teeth, feed yourself with a spoon, open doors, with a lot of things that require hand use. So they do a lot more specifically to improve patients' ability to grasp objects, improve their dexterity with their fingers, and a lot more upper extremity arm movements. Whereas physical therapy, we don't exclusively do, just like we're focused more on the lower extremities and helping patients use their legs a little bit more easily.
I know some young people may be wondering, how did you decide between the two?
So I had an experience in college where I was involved as a camp counselor at a therapy camp up in the Upper Peninsula. It's called Bay Cliff Health Camp. I worked there as a counselor for 3 summers, and that camp is primarily for kids with disabilities. And so I was able to work with campers there on just, doing camp activities, but then also working with them on their therapy goals, because they have therapists at this camp that work with them pretty intensively, like every day of the week for 7 weeks while they're there. And so seeing all of the disciplines working with these kids, that kind of led me to being most interested in the mobility piece of things, helping kids learn how to walk and things like that. And so that's what led me to pursuing physical therapy specifically.
So that's great. Some very hands-on experiences. And if you don't mind, Kate, if you could put the name of that camp into the chat, because again, I want to help these young people understand some resources, some next steps. So being a camp counselor at a special needs camp, Special Olympics, any of those things, young people, that's the kind of stuff to be doing in high school. We'll talk more specifically of things you can do in high school. Thank you so much for sharing, Kate. I appreciate that. So Ryan, a program manager, and you you had looked at physical therapy, followed your mom and thought, yep, that's not for me. So you got your business degree. So what is your job all about?
Sure. I would say, a program manager, other similar terms might be an office manager, an operations manager would be, similar titles, especially within the healthcare field. I'm more of a behind the scenes. I get to work here in Kalamazoo. I've got a staff of 13 employees. I've got psychologists, physical therapists, occupational therapy, a doctor, patient service coordinators. So, I get the opportunity, one of my main roles is to assemble the team. So I'm trying to make sure that I've got the right people, that they've got the right tools to do their job, that we have the right patients at the right time. So I get to kind of do that behind the scenes. I help with some of our marketing, some of our, again, just that we've got the right operations, the right flow so that everybody else can do their job. I really, it feels like I have my own, my own company or my own business, here with this, that's kind of the ownership, a program manager or an operations manager is going to take, supporting your employees, supporting your customers for that.
I love that you're, like you say, in healthcare, but you feel like you're your own business owner within your department where you're helping everything flow, and you probably have to deal with some budgets and stuff, and just like you say, marketing. So lots of variety. That's probably a wonderful part of your job, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I had written down here and forgot to mention, but yeah, you talked about, finances, dealing with budgets, dealing with numbers and spreadsheets. I've got two daughters. I've got a freshman and a senior in high school, so similar ages to some of the people probably on the call here today. And I told them just yesterday, I'm like, I actually used algebra at work today, so it does come into play even in my job.
That's an encouragement to the young people for sure. I know some of you have shared your education path, but I'd like just to kind of go through that, and I'll kind of ask some nuanced questions for each of you. Going back to you, Grace, I know you shared that you had your linguistics undergrad and you got your Spanish minor, and then you ended up with a master's degree. Is there anything else you'd like the students to know about your degree, internships that were important, anything else around that actual education that you'd like them to know about?
I feel like I've covered all the highlights, I guess, in terms of education. I think just knowing that you can go into college thinking one thing and then totally change that, kind of be in a similar field, being in healthcare. I was convinced I wanted to work with kids. So that was kind of a shift for me once I started working with adults. I was like, I feel like I might switch this. So I guess being open-minded, that's important.
Yes. Was your, did you have to do an internship as part of your college experience?
Yeah, so I actually did multiple internships because I had taught swim lessons when I was in high school. I was a swimmer. And so I really, really liked kind of that preschool age group. That was where I wanted to be, I thought. So I did a lot of observing, even in high school, speech therapists. So, but mostly in the pediatric field. So.
Young people like to know how people got from here to there. How did you find your internships? Was someone helping you figure those out, or did you pursue those on your own?
In high school, I pursued them on my own. My sister actually has a problem with her speech. And so I observed a speech therapist that she had seen. So that was kind of a personal connection. So that made it a little bit easier. In college, I did it through a class. So I actually got credit for it.
Right. And so they help set those details up for you, so you didn't have to try to find that yourself. So again, young people, just an encouragement to you that, if you have a career that you want to pursue, seeking some of those opportunities out. I know it's a little funny with COVID right now, so these job shadows aren't as readily available, but as you'll find, a lot of adults don't mind talking to you on a Zoom call or over the phone about their jobs. So it's still a great thing to be doing while you're in high school. Thanks, Grace, for that. Alyssa, I don't think we could touch on your education. What did you end up with as far as education, and is there some flexibility in that? Tell us the education path.
Yeah, so I got my undergrad at Central Michigan University, and it's just kind of like exercise science. It's a great base degree, but it's health sciences. I know some other colleges might call it allied health. I think there's a couple other names, but it's a very similar degree, and basically it's just a very wide overview of healthcare administration, but also you have a good mix of labs and science courses as well. So I got that degree, and that, along with my clinical experience, got me the position I'm in today. And I'm currently studying for my master's degree in healthcare administration, but definitely not something I needed in order to obtain the degree, the job I have right now. But I do know that moving forward and just what I aspire to do down the road, that a master's degree will be very helpful, and it definitely has been helpful in my job right now.
So you had mentioned well, you mentioned that the degree and the clinical experience. What kind of clinical experience did you have?
Yeah, so I started in healthcare 7 years ago as a phlebotomist. So that is someone that works in the laboratory, and they go around to patients and draw blood and any other specimens. Luckily, I didn't have to do any urine or stool at the hospital I worked at, but I know some places you might have to do that. But yeah, that's how I got started, and I did not need any degree. All of my training was done on the job. I was, I think, 20 years old at the time, and I knew coworkers that started that right out of high school. And I really do encourage that type of a position to anyone that is looking in healthcare, just any type of entry-level healthcare position, because what I got to do was kind of be a fly on the wall and see the doctors work, watch nurses work, physical therapists, occupational therapists, and it really helped me decide what type of career path to take.
Yeah, that's gold. That's gold right there. I also highly recommend young people that are on this Zoom call today to really consider getting an entry-level position at a healthcare facility. Spectrum and St. Mary's, or Mercy Health, and Mary Free Bed all have, well, not Mary Free Bed, Mercy and Spectrum have a student nutrition tech position where they do Tuesdays and Thursdays from 4 to 8 p.m. and every other weekend from 4 to 8. It's very student friendly. But my daughter also did that. So she got her, like you said, her foot in the door. So she was seeing what was out there and learning about the different titles, which really helped her clarify. And so is that what kind of helped you know what was out there, where you didn't want to say clinical per se, and you went more into the quality improvement side?
Yeah, so I was thinking about going into nursing after I changed my mind from teaching. And just luckily for me, nursing, I decided was not for me. I had seen a lot, and I just really didn't want to do that clinical work, wound care, like I think Ryan had mentioned. Some of those things just deterred me from it. So I ended up moving up through the lab department at Spectrum and got into a supervisor role. And so with these promotions, I learned about process improvement and working on projects. And so when I discovered that, that's when it really piqued my interest into doing that part of the job full time.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And young people, I hope you're hearing that she started, as a phlebotomist, and she kept learning and moving up and getting promoted to a supervisor, which gave her different experiences, which opened up doors. That is very much a way that people end up in their careers. You don't have to have it all figured out right now. You don't even have to have it figured out in the first couple of years. Just trust the process, that when you're in these settings, you're going to be learning and growing and having the opportunity for different things. So I just hope for some of you that I can alleviate some of the anxiety that is so prevalent out there for young people, feeling they have to have it all figured out. And so thank you so much for sharing that, Alyssa. It's really great to hear that your career is just moving along. And now you're working on your master's degree, like you said, so you can aspire to the next level that you want to do.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Mackenzie, so it sounds like you were, like you said, you had some different interests in your undergrad and ended up in that exercise science, and you are the glue in these different departments. What have been some influences on you, kind of continuing down this path, and where do you see yourself going now that you're kind of getting a good lay of the land as well?
Sure. So as far as this position, a lot of different facilities have this type of position. Some would consider it secretarial. Here at Mary Free Bed, we kind of separate our secretaries from our patient service coordinators. And so also for this position, a degree is not required. So it's a good entry level It does depend on the department that you're in for what type of background you might need. So with my two coworkers, one is a cosmetologist by trade, and we trained her on this position. The other one has an associate's, and then you have me with a 4-year bachelor's and a year of research. So we come from all walks of life, all different ages. So, you know, as far as who can do this, just about anyone. You know, it's a very trainable position. So it really depends on the department you're interested in as well for what type of background they might need. Definitely schooling and background and even lifestyle upbringing make it, you know, second nature for me, or, you know, first language. It's very comparable or compatible to my personal background. And so as far as education, you know, really didn't know out of high school. All I knew was something medical that helped people. Went to Grand Valley, kind of weaseled my way through, ended up with exercise science. You know, and then I took a position right out of high school as an office manager for a private practice, outpatient PT and OT company. So I got to, you know, work the ropes, literally run the office and watch physical therapy, occupational therapy, personal training, you know, some elderly or older citizen classes, just a lot of group exercise. So I was able to experience a lot of that. So I was able to bring that to the table into this department, which very similar as far as scheduling, insurance, following up with patients, therapies, just a different department per se for a larger organization. Is there another specific question you wanted me to touch on? I'm sorry, I just kind of kept going.
No, that's great. It's so great for young people to hear that that's how your career path went, that all those experiences kind of kept building on each other. Your degree, you didn't have to have it, but it opened a door to and will certainly help you in anything that you do at your next level. So no, I think it's really important for young people to hear that this type of position you can do. But like I said, that job right out of high school really helped give you some experiences that made you probably very attractive as a candidate when you applied. They probably wanted to snag you right away. So thank you for that. Andrew?
About like,
oh, go ahead.
Oh.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say about moving further or where I might see myself. You know, my coworker who has an associate's has been at Mary Free Bed for almost 10 years. So she's pretty content with this position. You know, there are ways you can work yourself up from just your basic patient service coordinator like myself. There are different tiers of that based on, you know, what type of job capabilities, what you can bring to the table, and you learn by experience as you go up the tiers. And then you could become a lead, so you could oversee a certain department and other patient service coordinators, and even work your way up further if you wanted. You know, there are similar coworkers to me that do have master's degrees. So it, again, like I said, it's all over the board. It really depends on your interests and, you know, what you want to do, or if you want to move forward, this is a great position to be in while you're in school, you know, and put those together hand in hand and just keep going. So.
Yeah, that's true. And a lot of young people on the Zoom call may not be aware that Spectrum and Mercy Health and a lot of larger institutions have tuition reimbursement as well. So as you're working in some of these positions, they can actually be paying for your school. So going into college debt does not have to happen. As some of these role models are showing, you start off and you work and you start gaining experiences. And again, work that system to get some of that tuition paid for. Don't feel like you have to go straight for a master's degree to be in health, because again, there's many, many steps and paths to get there. So thank you for that. It's great, great information. Go ahead.
I was going to say, so one thing that also helped set me up, you know, going into college was when I was in high school, I kind of went a fast track route and was able to do some college education courses paid for by my high school. So walking into my freshman year of college, I already had, you know, 12, 14 credits. So I think if your school is willing to do that or they have that program, just go for it. It could be an online geography class, but it will cancel out one of your basic freshman level classes. So things like that are those outlooks and those, you know, just recommendations for setting yourself up for, you know, success.
And thank you. So for some of you on the Zoom call, young people, your school may have an early middle college program where you can get that associate's by just going one extra year in high school. Again, you're going to save 2 years of tuition. So, you know, check into that with your counselor. Just as Mackenzie was saying, there's ways to even cut some corners to save tuition on the way you go through. Thank you for sharing that, Mackenzie. Andrew, I don't know if we really caught like how you chose orthotics and prosthetics.
Mhm.
Give us a little more of that nuts and bolts. What were those influences? And again, you mentioned it was a master's degree, now you're in your residency, but what were those other influences that might have affected you?
Yeah, so I was, like I said, I was originally IT. I knew that it wasn't where I wanted to be. I was in physical therapy at the time, and so I thought maybe I wanted to move towards more that type of a field. And right at the same time, my dad had an injury that he ended up having to go to an orthotist. And so I went and I met the guy, and I thought it was pretty cool, and I did some shadowing with him. And I just kind of fell in love with it. So from there, somebody, I think Grace was saying she had a internship that was paid, like she got credit for. I had one of those as well, and I fell into a pretty good technician job. It was a different company, but and through that, I kind of found that this is what I like to do. I was a technician for 3 years prior to going back to school. And that's a job that if anybody is interested in orthotics and prosthetics, there's no education required for it. It's a lot of on-the-job training, and it's a good way to get your feet wet and see if it's the right field for you.
Yeah, I love that, to actually be doing it, getting your hands in it, and before you decide to spend the money on a master's degree.
And it
knowing
gave
you're
me a
gonna have-
huge advantage in the master's program that, I mean, I had a lot of skills that most people didn't have, and it's still benefiting me today.
Yeah. Sometimes, like, again, kids want the nuts and bolts. How did you get that technician job? Was it something you saw on a job board? Did someone open up through
Yeah, so
networking?
it was a college class originally, and it was just an internship. And I think one thing that's really important when you're talking about doing shadowing and things like that is to treat those people like they could be your future employer, because it surprised me that I got offered a job, and the same people that offered me that job when I had no idea where I was going were the people that wrote me letters of recommendation later on. So anybody can end up benefiting you. Like, you know, if you are your best self, it'll really be beneficial in the long run. So
Yeah, I love that, to always be your best self, because doors will open for you if
definitely.
you're always doing that. And also they'll close if you're not on time, you don't have a good attitude, you're not a team player, that can close the door and slam it shut, and they won't be part of your network to help you move along that path. But it's great to hear that, yes, those relationships are important and they lead to the next thing. There's probably so many on this, as far as our role models are showing, that some of those connections are really making the difference, for sure. Thank you, Andrew. That's so helpful. Kate, obviously it's PT is a doctorate now. Tell us about your education.
Yes, so physical therapy is a doctorate level degree, and occupational therapy is as well, actually. So in my undergrad, for my 4-year undergraduate degree, I specialized in physiology. Basically, it was more of a medical degree. A lot of students in my degree went on to medical school. But physiology lended itself well to physical therapy as well, because it gave us all the prerequisites that I needed in terms of anatomy and physiology, and the math classes that I needed to take in order to go to physical therapy school. But exercise science, to kind of echo what Grace said, exercise science also would have been an appropriate degree. And I would say the majority of physical therapy students in my class and other classes were in a degree program like that, like exercise science or exercise physiology. And then after the completion of your bachelor degree, you apply to graduate school, and it's a 3-year doctorate program where you're learning basically how to be any type of physical therapist. So with my degree, I could go into orthopedic rehab, working with mostly adults with injuries or with issues with pain, or neurologic physical therapy, where you're working with more like patients with brain injury or spinal cord injury, or different degenerative diseases like multiple sclerosis, or one of the path that I obviously chose was pediatric physical therapy, where I can work with just about any of those things in small people. So there's so many different areas to go into. And so the way that I got specialized in pediatrics starting out was that I did a residency in pediatric physical therapy for 1 year, where I got a lot of mentoring to learn more than I did in school about pediatric therapy, and how to take what I learned in school and translate it to working with kids, and how to help kids succeed in their goals.
I hope the young people are getting all these golden nuggets out of this, again, so many of those experiences in the training helps you fine tune it. There's so many options, you guys. So many of these titles are just umbrellas. There's so many pathways under these. So again, you don't have to have it all figured out. You will learn about this as you're going through. But again, just great information for them to hear about. Thank you so much, Kate. Ryan, you mentioned your degree. Is there anything else you'd like to share about your education? Did you have internships? Is there anything that you would recommend around the education side as we're focusing on this subject?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, again, my degree is, a bachelor's of in business administration. The focus was on, marketing communications, but within that business field, most high or most college programs are going to require an internship as well. And again, those are, I went through that as well. I actually did mine for the Kellogg company, so at their headquarters in Battle Creek. That again, those internships gives you that, insight. Again, it might not rule out everything, but helps you, decide. Andrew mentioned he thought he wanted to be, IT. Maybe that didn't fit for him. When I did my internship at Kellogg's, I was in a cubicle at a computer 8 hours a day doing research. And quickly discovered that's not what I wanted to do. I didn't want to be where I was going to be just in an office. There's people that like that. That's a good fit for them. It wasn't going to be for me, but I was able to find that out before I actually started applying for jobs after college. You talked about internships, observation hours. You don't have to wait until you're in college to start that, and I'm seeing that sooner, earlier and earlier, that high schools are incorporating that into the program as well. So I would highly encourage students to find those internships, or just find it doesn't have to be a full summer internship. It could just be observation hours. So if you have an aunt or an uncle that is whether they're a physical therapist or a plumber, if it's something that you think you might have interest in, ask them, hey, can I shadow you for an hour? Can I come to work with you, for an afternoon? Whatever that field might be. If there's somebody that you go to church with, your soccer coach, what do they do when they're not, coaching soccer? To see if you could, again, just ask. I think that's what holds us back a lot of times, is that we just don't ask. And more times than not, someone's going to be willing to provide that opportunity, for you. So.
Yes, young people, I really want you to hear that, because adults want to help you figure this out. So they will do what they can do within their certain limitations, but they do want to help you. So don't be afraid to ask for job shadows. One other thing I really want to mention right now is volunteering too. A couple of our role models have talked about that, but if you literally just do volunteer work on Monday nights, twice a month for 2 hours, and even at a nursing home where you're in the rec therapy area and maybe playing cards with people or painting residents' nails, you're getting those skill sets of learning about patients, their needs. You're getting some things for your resume. You can count those observation hours or participation hours as part of your resume when you're applying for grad school. Lots of great things you can be doing in high school. A lot of young people work at fast food, for example. That's great, but why not work in the in the restaurant food service part of a hospital? Because you're going to get to take food around to the different departments and learn. So again, same type of work, but it's the environment that's going to expand your knowledge. And go ahead. I think you had something to say, Ryan.
Yes, you were talking about as far as those volunteer hours, that is huge. So it doesn't have to be every little bit helps. And I guess I would encourage, especially the high schoolers on the call today, to have a good method of keeping track of those hours as well, because at some point as you start to apply to colleges, you're going to have to start submitting those. And if you're having to look back on it, it's like, oh my goodness, I know my freshman year I did some work at my church, or I helped out at a nursing home. It's going to be a long process for you. So having a method to keep track of those hours, again, nursing homes, the nursery at your church, helping coach ASO youth soccer teams, things like that. But keep track of those hours now. That's going to pay dividends when that senior year starts rolling around.
Yeah, the tip to keep track of it is so important, Ryan. Thank you so much for pointing that out, because you think you're going to remember, but you're going to forget the person's name that you worked with, their phone number, their email. So get that into a special place, because trust me, your 4 years of high school is going to go like that, and you're going to need some of that information for college applications or scholarship applications to start to prove those hours. And so you're going to need to maybe get a letter of reference or a letter of documentation. So that totally makes sense. Time is flying by. It's just a little before 7. Again, students, I'm going to be giving you a resource to go into some of the nuts and bolts of some of these careers. But if you have a question you'd like to ask, please put that in chat and I'll make sure to ask it. Just again, to stay on the personal side as we finish up, but we'll go back to you, Grace. What are some of your favorite things about your job? Maybe 2 favorite things and maybe 2 things that are not so much your favorite. And each of you can anticipate that. So 2 of your favorite things about your work and 2 not so great.
Yeah, I had one follow-up thing I was going to say, I guess.
Sure.
I think establishing relationships, but then also maintaining those relationships is really important. So I observed a speech therapist at a hospital in Ann Arbor when I was getting my undergraduate degree. And then I kind of reached out to her periodically just to say like, hey, how you doing? How are things going? And then 4 years later, I applied to a fellowship in that same hospital, and she actually wrote me a letter. So that was really nice. So, you know, they'll know who you are if you maintain that relationship. So I think establishing it and maintaining it is important. In terms of what I like about, and I actually logged that, I guess, with some of my communication with those people. Like, hey, I got to circle back to this person. It's been 6 months since I've talked to them, just so I could remember how long it had been and just remind myself to check back in. Because it means a lot. I feel like as having students myself, when students check back in, I find that very impressive too. And so that goes a long way for me writing them a letter of recommendation or something like that. So in terms of what I like about my job, I'm a very social person. And so I spend all day, every day with people. So that's really great. I really love seeing progress that patients make. So, you know, working with someone who had a stroke and can't talk at all, and then seeing that progress up to the point that they can maybe tell their wife that they love them, right? I mean, like, how rewarding is that? So that's kind of a blessing and a curse, I guess. So sometimes you get in a situation where maybe you're working with a patient that has a degenerative diagnosis, and so they're going to get worse, not better. And so being in the therapy world, we're naturally empathetic people. And so that I feel like can kind of hit you hard and wear on you a little bit. So that's, I feel like, not a good thing, but it's also a good thing because you develop those connections. So I just like the connections that I make. That's definitely a plus of my job.
Yeah, and I think that's real. And I know young people have that concern, like, how do you emotionally deal with some of the sadness? Can you just share just quickly how you kind of cope with some of the things that are super hard?
Yeah, initially it was really hard because I feel like to be good as a therapist, you do have to connect and you do have to give a little bit of yourself, but you also kind of have to keep people at an arm's length. So like get invested, but not too invested, but it is hard. And I feel like initially I cried a lot when people didn't make the progress that I wanted them to make. And now I know what my limits are, and I'm very upfront with patients in the beginning about what their prognosis is.
I appreciate that perspective for sure. How about you, Alyssa? 2 things that you love, 2 things that you don't like so much.
So I'm still relatively new to this job, but I'd say my favorite thing, 2 of my favorite things, one, I work a lot with data, and I really enjoy that part of my job. I like putting together the graphs. I just like the Excel spreadsheets. That part makes me very happy. And second, I love when people have that light bulb moment when we're working on a project, and you know, it's not exactly my job to do the project, but to facilitate the project. A lot of these clinical leaders are already making improvements within their department. My job is just to help them and to, you know, give them the data that they need to bring to their team. And so I love seeing that light bulb moment and people getting on board and getting excited about making process improvements in the hospital system. And then I'd say the 2 things I don't care for, I like to move at a fast pace. And so this job requires a lot of patience because, especially with COVID right now, I'm working with different people in different departments, and I'm working with some top level executives, and I'm working with clinical leaders, and their hands are very full right now. And so my job, I have to kind of work on these things on my own. And so right now I'm just kind of working in the background, and even though I'd like to see some of these things move faster, I can't make them move faster right now.
Yeah, that'd be hard.
I can't think of the second one, but I'd say that's probably it.
That's good. I mean, like you say, you're still new. Hopefully it's still extra rosy. How about you, Mackenzie? As we look at our last 10 minutes here.
Yeah, so as far as positive things, I mean, because like you said, we're the glue, communication is huge. And being able to have access to so many wonderful employees, coworkers, and being able to reach out when you need something, that communication is key. So people skills are needed, whether you're face-to-face or on the phone. And I think that, I mean, it's pretty awesome knowing who you work with and everybody's willing to, same end goal, restoring hope and freedom is one of our big sayings here at Mary Free Bed. But also as far as the challenges we face and how we overcome them. So personal experiences working in psychology, I take phone calls for suicidal patients. Now I have to just mentally prepare, keep them on the phone for a certain amount of time, even though that's not a service that we provide. It's kind of just a skill you learn by being in the specific department you're in, or dealing with kind of feisty, angry parents that want their kids seen right now for a specific treatment, kind of putting yourself in, in their shoes, being able to empathize and see where they're coming from, but also bring them back to earth here. Let's talk through this together and we'll get there. It's just getting them on that same page, that level of understanding. As far as negatives, there really aren't that many other than, verifying some insurances, calling for authorizations. You might be on the phone for 45 minutes on hold. And so extra patience, but in the end, you're doing this for the patient. So you can provide the service and they can receive the service. So it goes hand in hand. So I guess, I don't really have another negative, but even after 3 years, that's the worst I can do.
No, that's a good, again, explanation of what you do. And I'm glad that you're enjoying it as much that you don't have to have negatives. I don't want to, Excel spreadsheets are not my friend. So I love that Alyssa loves them because that's like the worst part of my job. So it's fun how we all are different. Oh, Andrew, what about you? Anything you specifically like or don't like?
Yeah, so the number one thing I like is it's a super rewarding field. You're giving people their independence back who thought maybe they would never have it again. Whether it's, I don't know, eating their food or walking down the stairs or anything. Number two is just the development of relationships, long-term, short-term, both professional and with patients. You meet a lot of cool people in this field, physical therapists who are in this room. You work with so many different fields, so it's a cool thing to do. Things I don't like, wounds are kind of gross, and we do see that, but it's just a part of the job. And another thing is the patient motivation isn't always there. And I know that's something we all deal with in rehab. And it's hard to accept when a patient isn't quite as motivated towards their success as you are. So that's difficult.
Yeah, that certainly would be a challenge that you're working harder than your patient. And I see Grace nodding her head too. Role models that aren't talking, I just put a question in the chat. Go ahead and give some of those entry level positions that young people might be able to get in your department. But Kate, tell us about 2 things you like and don't like, or if you only have one of each, that's fine too.
I have a lot of things that I like about my job because I get to do a lot of different things, but I guess that's probably one thing about my job that I like is that every day is very different from the day before. I work with a lot of different age kids and a lot of different concerns that they're coming in with. And I also do a lot of different specialty services as part of my job. So I'm in a program that does serial casting where we actually put casts on kids' legs to help them stretch out their feet. I am working in a motion analysis center where we get to really closely study how kids walk, and we use these really high-tech computer equipment to do that. I get to be in surgery with kids with a certain surgery that they're doing to provide assistance to the surgeons who are working with them. So even within my specialized field, there's so many different things that you can do, and every day is different. And that's what I love about it. The second thing also is I love working with kids. I like helping them learn and grow and develop. I have, since I've been here for 8 years, I now have kids that I've seen for the last 6 to 8 years, not all year long, not like all the time, but like they'll come back for a few months of therapy every year or so. And so I get to see them grow and help their families learn how to work with them and help them as much as they can as they get older. So it's really great to develop those relationships with the families and with the kids and kind of like be a little bit of a part of their family.
And it seems like that's really what's special about Mary Free Bed, is those relationships that take place and those connections. I'm going to show everybody a video in just a minute, which really shows and kind of drives that point home. Thanks, Kate, for that. Ryan, 2 things you like or don't like.
There we go, finally unmute. I would say the one came to mind as far as that I don't like is that I probably do more sitting right now than I would like to be doing. It's not the same as that cubicle internship that I had, but I do more sitting than I would prefer to do. But as far as, things that kind of stand out that I like about it, my job, I get a lot of diversity, not only in the job tasks that I have, but again, working with psychologists and physical therapists and occupational therapists. I love that diversity. And then I love with my position, I get to make a lot of decisions and a lot of final decisions. And that fits my kind of type A personality very well. Some people don't like to be the one that has to make that final decision, don't like that pressure. This wouldn't be a good job for that person, but I enjoy that part that I get to make the final call on some of those decisions.
And not everybody's a decision maker. And I love that you like that and that you found a niche where you can use that ability to be decisive. That's great. All right, well, time has gone fast. I want to finish up by 2 things, students. I want to show you a video behind the scenes, and then role models. We're going to try to finish up with a word of wisdom from you. I know a student has asked that already, but as we finish out, think about what you might want to give as advice. Fatima wanted to know, did any of you happen to go to the Kent Career Technical Center as your undergrad? Or in high school, excuse me. I don't think most of you were, some of you were local, but not. But yes, highly recommend the Kent Career Technical Center to get some real life hands-on experience while you're still in high school. So there's no cost for tuition. Please, please, please check that out. I worked there for 5 years, so I'm a big fan. All right, everybody, let's watch this video and then we'll finish up.
I drive 216 miles, to get here. That's how much I trust her.
I'm back driving and back to work, and now I'm halfway running.
Instantly when I got here, even the welcome was like a lean towards, okay, now it's time to start pushing. Whatever you want to be, you can be it. Whatever you want to do, you can do it. Mary Free Bed has kind of restored the fact that that's true.
A program that saved my life, I would recommend to anyone.
So I love that video. It just kind of gives you a good behind the scene look. It's really bright and lots of relationships and lots of fun. If you didn't know, they have pools there for the different therapies. Recreation therapy isn't one we even talked about. So students, I encourage you to research that. I'm going to show you just one quick resource so you can do that next level of research, everyone. And then Shamil, you're going to be next. I want to introduce you guys to somebody, students, that will be perhaps a next step in your journey here. Roadtripnation.com is a fantastic website. If you hover over career exploration and click on interests, they have 52 mentors in the field of medicine. Again, hear people's stories, hear their career paths, decisions that they made, how they found their way. I love roadtripnation.com. ONET Online is the government website that has as many jobs as you can think about, that gives you the nuts and bolts. What kind of education is, how much money they make, is it a growing field? Links to the associations for these different careers, just a great resource. This is just a sample of one page for physical therapist. You'll see that there's different titles under physical therapy to help teach you the lingo. All these different categories, skills, abilities, detailed work activities, the education, different credentials, what kind of interest folks who do this tend to enjoy, work styles, all sorts of great information. So again, onetonline.org. And I already showed you the video, so there we go. Shamil is my contact over there at Mary Free Bed, and she works in the volunteer services. So I'd like you guys to meet her, because she may be someone that you might want to connect with after the pandemic's over. So welcome, Shamil. Thanks again for helping us set this up.
Hello, yes, no, thank you, Krista. So I'm our HR coordinator, and I work pretty closely with our job shadow programs, our career exploration programs, and we'll hopefully be working a little bit more closely with aligning some of our internships and expanding programming for K through 12 students and undecided college students. So you can definitely reach out to me if you're interested. Sorry, my son, that's just him in the background. If you're interested in learning more about job shadows, whenever we return to some form of normalcy, I don't know if we'll ever be normal again, but hopefully we are looking for some creative options on ways to give students those observation hours at the stage you all are in, coming in for tours and things of that nature. But please connect with me. You all can have my email address if you're interested in some shadowing opportunities in the future, just staying connected. I see some of you are interested in maybe some entry-level roles. So I could connect you to recruiters and things of that nature within our HR department. And just in general, I love to kind of help people through their journeys. So if you just have general questions or hoping, hey, can you connect me with this person or someone in there, maybe we can even make some personal connections that don't necessarily have to be job shadows. So feel free to reach out to me and use me as a resource to help you in your journey.
That's great. Thank you so much. And if you could put your name in the chat, Shamil, so they can follow me. You're welcome to put your email if you want. Mentors, just because of time, teenagers, you have been so great hanging in there with us for an hour and 15 minutes. I know so much of your school day is on Zoom, so you're probably zoomed out a little bit. So mentors, go ahead and put any final word of wisdom in the chat, and then you're free to head out, and I'll just kind of hang around with the students. If you want to hang out for any final questions, feel free to, but I certainly want to honor your time now that it's 7:15. So thank you. Students, what do you have to say to these wonderful role models? You know, if you have any, thank you, put that in the chat so these mentors can see that. I know it means a lot to me that they gave their time on an evening after the work hours. So thank you, everyone. You did a great job. We got some good information out. It's never long enough as far as I'm concerned either. It was super nice to meet you. So thank you, everyone. And again, I'll just hang on, anyone who doesn't need to leave. So I love that we had, 32 kids hung in there for that full hour and 15. Thanks, Shamil. I'll let you go, too.
Kind of words of
Go ahead.
Good question. So statement. One thing I learned by jumping different career pathways and changing different majors in colleges, it's okay to not know what you want to be. But again, from where I'm at now, 10 years out of school, I've learned it's okay to pick a position that you might be interested in and find someone in that position, go backwards. Ask them what path did they take to get there, learn their steps beforehand. So again, if you find a position somewhere in the field, you might not even know what it is, but you want to know, or maybe you like what they do and you just want to know how they got there. Like I said, work backwards, ask them those steps ahead of time rather than, taking all these unnecessary steps or, you learn along the way. But like I said, working backwards is okay too. And I'm slowly learning that it kind of works that way sometimes. So it's okay to do that. It's just something I've kind of picked up along the way.
Yeah, that's kind of my daughter's story. She got her degree in psychology from Grand Valley a year and a half ago. She moved to DC because she got married. And she worked at a hospital here in Spectrum for 4 years, all through college in the nutrition area. So she knows, she loves the setting. She's just not sure exactly which way to take it. And so I'm super excited if she gets this patient services coordinator job to get in and again, start finding out what else is in there. And, I know that she'll find her way and just keep probably getting promoted to where she needs to be. So super excited about that for her. Because she really does like going to the hospital every day. I love how you guys are putting your videos of some of your patients in there. That's awesome. Because you guys have amazing videos.
I have one final comment.
Sure. Absolutely. Go ahead.
Yeah, I feel like it's nice to think about kind of the impact that you want to make, if that makes sense. And I feel like seeing all of these different people working for Mary Free Bed, you can see that you can make an impact directly or indirectly. So whether you're working with patients or whether you're working to support patients in other ways, I feel like I get a lot of fulfillment out of my job, and that's really important too. But you don't have to be directly with patients to get that fulfillment.
And some young people don't even know what they don't know yet, right? And so I love that all of you had different roles, that you all get to be part of that big Mary Free Bed team, but in all very unique, special ways. Absolutely.